Yeah, I did change, and I'm really glad I changed.
This one's wife. Was this a hit on Princess Anne? Hello, I'm HG Tudor. Repeatedly, you, the valuable viewers, ask questions of me in relation to a variety of topics, which in course includes this one's wife. And the recent injury that was sustained by Princess Anne has prompted some people to pose the question to me as to whether this might have been an orchestrated hit against her. What might the thinking be behind such a suggestion? Well, it's been posited on the belief that Princess Anne has a hand in the financial future of Prince Harry, and therefore this one's wife, and that she may prove problematic to the two of them laying their hands on further funds. Therefore, the suggestion is that there was some attempt to get her out of the way for the purposes of ensuring that there was a smooth access to these funds. First of all, one considers, is this the actions that a narcissist and her enslaved intimate partner primary source might engage in? Well, since a narcissist has no emotional empathy, it is not beyond the realms of possibility that a narcissist would organise for someone to undertake a hit against somebody else that was a problem. The somebody else, whatever it might be that they're doing, would undoubtedly be threatening the narcissist's need for control. So, for example, a business rival that's causing problems in relation to the narcissist's business, or perhaps a spouse that won't accept the divorce or is being problematic in relation to their share of the divvy-up post-divorce, could also pose a problem and a threat to control. There have been instances, usually botched, of individuals hiring an assassin or hitman for the purposes of trying to take somebody else out. Those individuals who hire the hit person are not always narcissists. Sometimes they are just idiotic normals who have taken leave of their senses as a consequence of external pressures against them. And they engage in trying to hire a hitman where invariably they're ripped off or the hit goes wrong. However, it is possible that a narcissist would go so far as to hire an assassin to try and remove somebody that was mounting a threat to their need for control, whether it related to their business aspirations, romantic, love life, or something else. There is the potential for people naturally to offend the narcissist's need for control, and for the narcissist to therefore conclude that the most appropriate way of getting their way, i.e. removing the threat to control, would be to have that person killed. Having no emotional empathy, having the need for control, having that sense of entitlement, not being accountable for their behaviours, all leads to the possibility, not the probability, but the possibility that a narcissist would go down that route. Now, there is no evidence to state that this one's wife has conspired with Harry in order to try and remove Princess Anne because she poses a threat to their need for control in relation to financial matters. On the face of it, it does seem that the Sussexes could be in financial difficulties. They have an ongoing significant liability with regard to security costs, staff costs, mortgage costs, PR fees, legal fees, etc. And whilst there was certainly a rump of money that they had access to, we don't see any ongoing income at the moment, and therefore there is the potential for financial problems to arise and an increased need for future funds. Therefore, on the face of it, as a proposition, it would appear that the Sussexes could be under financial pressure, have no appreciable income in the near future, and therefore anybody delaying their access to certain funds would amount to a problem that would need to be addressed. Now, it's one thing to go from suggesting that a person has a problem with regard to accessing funds to then suggesting that they've decided that that person should be taken out, and one should be slow to reach such a conclusion. Just because somebody is a narcissist doesn't necessarily mean that they're automatically going to start looking for a hitman to take out somebody just because they're a problem. A narcissist faced with such a threat to control would be far more likely to go down alternative routes in order to try and nullify that threat to control. The narcissism's first and immediate response wouldn't be unlikely to suggest, go and hire a hitman. Nevertheless, it is interesting that numerous minds have looked upon the injury that Princess Anne has sustained and therefore thought, could this be something to do with the Sussexes? Could this be something to do with them where they've wanted her moved out of the way because she could be blocking access to money? Well, what happened in relation to Princess Anne? Well, she has returned home from hospital where she was being treated for a minor head injury and concussion. She was taken to hospital last Sunday, where she was thought to have been injured by a horse at her Gloucestershire estate. She isn't expected to return to public duties until doctors say it's safe to do so, and it's not known when that will be. She left Southmead Hospital on Friday morning, just past, without being seen publicly, and she's returned to her country home at Gatcombe Park. She was injured the previous Sunday evening when she was out walking on her estate with horses nearby. Owing to her concussion, the exact cause of the head wound remains unknown. According to the NHS, concussion can be the result of a temporary injury to the brain caused by a bump, blow, or jolt. Details, therefore, are scarce on the ground and may well be as a consequence of the fact that the Princess Royal simply can't remember. Now, might this be an attempt to off her? Well, if it were, it'd be rather clumsy, wouldn't it? Relying on a horse to throw her or a horse to kick her as a potential means of trying to kill her, it's not necessarily going to be blessed with success. There are far more guaranteed methods of bringing about somebody's demise rather than relying on her being kicked by a horse or tossed from a horse. And therefore, the suggestion that this injury in relation to the horse was the result of an assassination attempt does seem rather far-fetched. The response to that from some might be, well, perhaps this is the cover story. And she wasn't actually injured by a horse, it was something else, and they're just suggesting this to cover it up. Well, it's a possibility, but then that doesn't necessarily equate to it being a hit on the Princess Royal either. Accordingly, the method that was apparently used, or even if that was a cover-up story, doesn't necessarily demonstrate anything in relation to it being a potential hit against the Princess Royal. Furthermore, you would need to have a causal link between the narcissist and Harry deciding that the most appropriate way to get to money would be for the Princess Royal to be assassinated and for them to be able to effect it. It all does seem entirely far-fetched, and all the more because what would be the motive? Well, it's stated that apparently Princess Anne oversees a sum of money that's held on trust for Harry, a substantial sum of money, and that because of relations between Harry and the rest of the royal family are poor, to put it mildly, it's questionable on whether Princess Anne would allow the release of that money to the Sussexes. Given that the Sussexes apparently have financial difficulties, have no appreciable income, they would therefore be rather desperate to receive that money, and a failure to provide it to them when Harry hits 40 would be problematic for them. This, of course, would then amount to a threat to control. Thus, the rationale is this. Harry, and of course this one's wife, because whatever belongs to Harry, in her mind belongs to her, need money. Money's on the horizon. The Princess Royal could stop them receiving that money, that means she's a threat to control, therefore she needs to be dealt with. Well, you might think that you would actually wait until the actual threat to control is manifested, namely that there be a refusal to pay that money across, and then one would seek to apply different manipulations towards her in order to try and get her to change her mind. Going straight to trying to assassinate her does seem rather unusual and far-fetched. But there's also a further important detail that blows this theory completely out of the water, and that relates to Princess Anne's actual involvement with this sum of money that Harry is purportedly going to receive. The Mirror reported that Prince Harry was forced to wait 5 years longer than his mother, Diana, Princess of Wales, wanted to receive what she had left him in his will. He was just 12 years old when his mother died in the car crash in 1997. And before her life was cut short, she'd written a number of her final wishes. This included what should be gifted to her sons in the event of her death, and when. The princess had special items put aside for her sons, and one of them was later used by William to propose to Kate. Harry was also included in the original document that was signed by Diana on June 1st, 1993, and later amended in 1996, a year before the accident that also killed her boyfriend, Dodi Fayed. Frances Ruth Shan Kidd and Sister Lady Elizabeth Sarah Lavinia McCorkdale were named as co-executors and trustees for her estate. In her will, she requested that nearly all her possessions be divided between William and Harry, and her 17 godchildren receive the rest, and £50,000 was given to her butler, Paul Burrell. Diana wanted the bulk to be placed in a trust, which she requested William and Harry have access to when they turned 25. But the court allowed Diana's mother and sister to change a few of the will's details. It was decided that the age at which the princes received their share was changed from 25 to 30. The items included Diana's iconic 1981 wedding dress, which was to be gifted to the pair when Harry marked his 30th birthday. Meanwhile, William received his mother's engagement ring, which he later used to propose to Princess Kate. The dress was made up of thousands of pearls, layers of silk and a 25-foot train, and was returned to her sons in 2014 after a global tour. The treasured heirloom was transferred into the prince's possession alongside other cherished personal items. Thus, the fact is that they were due to inherit age 25, and that was changed 30. The two co-executors were Frances Shan Kidd and Lady Elizabeth McCorkdale, not Princess Anne. Princess Anne has no involvement whatsoever in any money that is to be received by Harry, and furthermore, it's also the case that Harry isn't to receive further money that was to be inherited from his mother that was received when he was 30. Therefore, there doesn't appear to be actually any necessity of a motive for this one's wife and Harry, even if they were to go so far as to take such a step, to try and off Princess Anne because she's not involved in any process vis-a-vis money that Harry would receive from his late mother. Accordingly, those that have suggested that somehow this one's wife and Harry had conspired to have the Princess Royal assassinated so that she no longer blocked his access to money is simply wrong. It's a far-fetched conspiracy idea, and it has no bearing in reality. Whilst a narcissist may well, of course, seek to remove someone by virtue of a hitman, and it's relatively unusual compared to all of the other manipulations that a narcissist would otherwise use to nullify a threat to control, in this instance, there doesn't even appear to be any threat to control posed by Princess Anne in that regard. Therefore, it would be entirely pointless for them to take such steps, even if they were moved to do so. I always welcome people posing questions in relation to the various topics and people affected by narcissism in order to educate, but also in instances to explain to people that certain theories that may originate have no actual basis. It's important to do so. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening. Might there be an alternative source of money that Harry is to receive that Princess Anne may have some involvement in? Well, in 2002, the Queen Mother died. She was worth around £14 million at that time. The bulk of her money went to her daughter, the now late Queen Elizabeth II, although provision was made for both William and Harry, and at the time it was reported that actually Harry would receive a larger proportion than William because his financial future was less certain than that of William's, because William was second in line to the throne. Therefore, provision was made. But the bulk of her estate, which included the contents of her homes, was left to Queen Elizabeth II, including her prized collection of Monet paintings, and that the money that was left for Harry may well have been placed into a trust, although the details of that are unknown. Certainly, the sum involved is not going to be as large as £14 million. It would be a much smaller sum. And furthermore, there is no evidence to confirm that Princess Anne is even involved in the dealings associated with that money. It may be the case that Harry has already received that sum. He did explain that the bulk of the money that they used, he and this one's wife, when they went to the United States, was what he'd been left by his mother. He explained to Oprah in the interview, "I've got what my mum left me, and without that we wouldn't have been able to do this. It's like she saw it coming, and she's been with us through this whole process." It was believed that he was left somewhere in the region of $11 million by his mother, which then increased to $18 million through investments. And of course, he was able to lay his hands on that when he had turned 30. Accordingly, Princess Anne had no involvement in relation to the money that he received from his mother, and the sum of money that was left by the Queen Mother would be a much smaller amount, and there's still no clear evidence that this would involve Princess Anne. Accordingly, even if, and this is a considerable leap of imagination, that this one's wife would be motivated to conspire with Harry to off Princess Anne because she was conceivably blocking the provision of money to them, there is no actual evidence to not only support that they would engage in such behaviour, but furthermore, any evidence to demonstrate that Princess Anne is posing a threat to control. Naturally, I always welcome questions posed by people in relation to narcissism, and their impact upon people, and delight in explaining things for people seen through the lens and prism of narcissism and how narcissists will act. But in this instance, it does appear to me that there is no actual evidence to support the proposition that Princess Anne actually has any involvement in the financial affairs of Prince Harry, and even less, therefore, to suggest that Harry and this one's wife would be motivated to try and cause some horse-related assassination attempt. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.